The Minnesota Vikings didn't exactly have the 2025 campaign that they were hoping for, but they finished the year strong, giving them something to build off of moving forward. Early in the offseason, though, the team has had to grapple with the possibility that defensive coordinator Brian Flores could leave to take a head coach opening with another team in the NFL. While several teams have already passed on Flores, he is reportedly a finalist for the Baltimore Ravens and Pittsburgh Steelers head coach jobs. On Wednesday night, though, the Vikings took a big step towards keeping Flores in town for at least one more season. However, there is one big catch that is surely worth some attention. Vikings signed Brian Flores to contract extension. The Vikings have signed defensive coordinator Brian Flores to a new contract, sources tell me, and at Rap Sheet. Flores is still a candidate with the Steelers and Ravens head coaching jobs. But if he doesn't land one of those, he'll stay in Minnesota. Flores just finished up his third season with Minnesota as its defensive coordinator, and his work with the unit has helped him earn consideration for a head coach gig with several different teams. While his previous stint with the Miami Dolphins as a head coach didn't go particularly well, Flores' ability to completely turn the Vikings' defense around has made him a top candidate once again. While Flores has emerged as a frontrunner for the Baltimore and Pittsburgh's jobs, it's become clear that, in a perfect world, Minnesota would like to keep him around. The team obviously isn't going to prevent him from taking a new job should he want it, but the Vikings have been expected to retain Flores should he not land one of the aforementioned head coach gigs. On Wednesday night, Minnesota took a big step towards securing Flores' future as the two sides agreed to a new contract extension. The problem, though, is that Flores is still in the running for the Ravens and Steelers openings. So if he doesn't land one of those gigs, he will stick with the Vikings, but he could still land one of the jobs he is in consideration for. The Vikings have signed defensive coordinator Brian Flores to a new contract, sources tell me, and Ian Rappaport. Tom Pelissero of NFL Network reported in a post on X. Flores is still a candidate with the Steelers and Ravens head coaching jobs. But if he doesn't land one of those, he'll stay in Minnesota. Will Vikings be able to retain Brian Flores? On the surface, this extension for Flores seems pretty important, but the Vikings are still in limbo with their defensive coordinator, as he could land a head coach job, which would render this move pretty inconsequential. With the Ravens and Steelers still fairly early in their head coach searches, it could be another week or so until Minnesota learns Flores' true fate. The Vikings did all they could to keep Flores around, but it may not be enough. Now, all eyes will be on Baltimore and Pittsburgh to see who both teams end up hiring. Flores could very well land with either squad, but if he doesn't, he will be back with Minnesota for at least one more season as its defensive coordinator. Just as the decision by former Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin to step down potentially impacted Minnesota Vikings quarterback J.J. McCarthy's future by freeing up veteran Aaron Rodgers, the Steelers' choice to hire Mike McCarthy as their next coach could impact the Chicago Bears staff in a very real way. Al Harris played for McCarthy as a defensive back with the Green Bay Packers for 4 seasons from 2006 to 2009. Harris went on to join the NFL as a coaching intern with the Miami Dolphins in 2012, where he played in 2010, following his retirement after the 2011 campaign. Harris later coached defensive backs for the Kansas City Chiefs and joined McCarthy's staff with the Dallas Cowboys in 2020 as the DB's coach. McCarthy promoted Harris to assistant head coach in 2024 before the Cowboys fired McCarthy following that campaign. While McCarthy sat out the 2025 season, Harris joined head coach Ben Johnson's staff as the DB's coach/defensive pass game coordinator. Safety Kevin Byard III put up an all-pro campaign, while Harris held together a secondary that was injured all season, but showed up in big ways during the second half of Chicago's Round 1 comeback win over the Packers and throughout the Bears' overtime loss to the Los Angeles Rams during the divisional round last weekend. Harris has never been a defensive coordinator in the league, though Pittsburgh sports personality Mark Kaboly predicted on Saturday, January 24th, that those facts may be about to change with the Steelers. I'd keep a keen eye on Al Harris coming in as the Steelers' defensive coordinator. Harris is currently the DB coach/defensive pass game coordinator with the Bears. I'd keep a keen eye on Al Harris coming in as the Steelers' defensive coordinator, Kaboly said. Harris is currently the DB coach/defensive pass game coordinator with the Bears. Eagles requested interview with Bears offensive coordinator Declan Doyle late last week. Johnson has only been in Chicago one season, but he took the team from 5-12 to 11-6 and won the franchise's first playoff game in 15 years over the course of those 12 months. As a result, other teams have already come calling on some major players who are part of his staff. Pittsburgh has not technically called Harris yet, or at least no one has reported any contact, as McCarthy just landed the job on Saturday, January 24th. However, the Philadelphia Eagles have inquired about the availability of Bears offensive coordinator Declan Doyle after just 1 year in that position. Eagles have requested to interview Bears offensive coordinator Declan Doyle for their offensive coordinator position, ESPN's Adam Schefter reported via social media Thursday. Doyle was hired last offseason as the NFL's youngest offensive coordinator, and he previously coached under Sean Payton in New Orleans and Denver. Ben Johnson likely to allow any Bears coaches to interview for other jobs. Johnson is likely to let his coaches interview for other jobs in the potential of spreading their proverbial wings. He stated so publicly in the days after the Rams eliminated the Bears from playoff contention in round 2. Johnson himself was an offensive coordinator with the Detroit Lions for 3 seasons before landing the Bears' job in January of 2025. As such, Harris will likely have a pathway to become the Steelers' next offensive coordinator if McCarthy decides to reach out to him about the job. The Pittsburgh Steelers made a significant organizational shift by hiring Mike McCarthy as their next head coach, moving away from their tradition of young, defensive-minded leaders. While McCarthy brings a wealth of experience, including a Super Bowl title with the Green Bay Packers, the hire has faced scrutiny. One NFL insider characterized the decision as uninspired, noting that the team passed on the chance to reset with a rising young coordinator. Former Steelers standout Le'Veon Bell offered a particularly harsh prediction, suggesting a 4-13 season is incoming and criticizing the move as a step backward. Despite the criticism, management believes McCarthy's history of developing elite passers could be the key to convincing Aaron Rodgers to return for one final run or properly molding the next face of the franchise. What are the Steelers' biggest offseason needs, and who could they target with a 21st pick? According to a report from ESPN, the Steelers' needs once again center around the quarterback position, regardless of whether Rodgers is in the mix next season. At pick number 21, there will be consideration for Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson if he's still on the board. His strong play in the pocket would fit well with McCarthy's West Coast offense. But if Simpson is gone by the time Pittsburgh is on the clock, the wide receiver class could get a look. The Steelers still need someone opposite DK Metcalf, and USC's Makai Lemon would be an ideal number 2 with his route running and run-after-catch abilities, also noticed ESPN. The draft strategy highlights the urgency to surround whoever is under center with more reliable weapons. While Metcalf remains a dominant force, the lack of a consistent second option was evident during his late-season suspension. Makai Lemon, who has been praised for having some of the most reliable hands in the draft class, would immediately upgrade the depth chart. The franchise's win-now mentality is clear, but the path to a deep playoff run remains complicated by a challenging divisional landscape. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, a new voice is leading the way in Pittsburgh, and the results of this transition will shape the team's identity for the next 5 years.